Hi and welcome to Manned Up Conversations, where we connect with evolving men to discuss issues around masculinity and manhood, and also provide tools to help us be better for our society.
Well, that's the thing, is like the big one there is like you're gay if you were raped by a man, right? No, you know. The other big one is that you're lucky if you were raped by an older woman. Well, you know, I kind of don't classify being raped as being lucky. You know what I mean?
Got an erection, it's assumed that, okay, well, he likes it, right?
Yeah, you know, and it happens, and I talk, and I mean, I do like online sessions with men and women for rape. And a lot of women actually come and say, I orgasmed whilst I was being raped. And I feel bad because I enjoyed it. And I'm going like, no, actually you didn't. A lot of men have that issue. I had a guy who wanted to cut, he's like, ended up in hospital, I don't know how many times, trying to cut his penis off because he felt that his penis betrayed him.
Welcome to it. It's another installment of Manned Up Conversations, and I'm here with a special brother. I think we met today and had quite a deep exchange based on the topic that we're going to be talking today, which is male sexual abuse.
Yeah, I don't like it. I just call it rape because that's what it is.
Man, you know? Okay, let's classify it as rape, the correct terms. I'm here with my brother, Martin Pelders. How you doing, Martin?
Great, and you, KG. Thanks for the opportunity, man.
Man, we're here at your beautiful renovation, your future house where you're going to be helping a lot of men get through some issues, man.
Well, we hope so. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So we decided to start an addiction center. More a halfway house, I think. Yeah. And then, but it's all going to be based on childhood trauma because I believe all addiction is about childhood trauma. It starts there, it forms there.
Man.
So... yeah.
So Martin, I mean, you know, before we get into the crux of what we're going to talk about, let's talk a bit about your organization. You call yourselves MatrixMen.
Yeah.
I love the word. I love the naming of it. Can you tell us a bit about what MatrixMen is about? You said you started before, you know, the whole men conversation was quite the conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, what are some of the foundations of your organization?
Well, yeah, I mean, I started 12 years ago nearly. And I just knew that I needed to help men because they were going through issues that we weren't allowed to talk about essentially as a society. Sure. And I was, how to do it, you know. I mean, I was going to start these groups and, you know, I was kind of had these visions of men just like, yes, I want to talk about that. And the doors open and like 1,000 guys walk in. Yeah, well... I remember I went to the first one was a mental health clinic in Randburg, and I sat there for like months every Tuesday night, and nobody pitched. Man. But I was like, no, you know what? I'm not going to give up. Eventually, we had like 5 people in the group, you know, and then we got another 5, and then another 5, and so we just built up, you know. Man. And then for a long time, I just stopped because I didn't really know what I was doing, and I wanted to learn. So I kind of thought, okay, what I need to do is like activism. I need to talk, you know. So I coined the phrase. I use my story to give other men permission to heal, because that's how it happened for me. You know, I heard other men telling me their stories, and that triggered in me. Wow, okay, that happened to me. Okay, so I can now start the healing process, and I'm using my story in the hopes that other men will hear my story and say, well, that happened to me. And that's how it's been. I mean, every guy that's come into our groups now is because of me telling my story. Sure. And I just kept going, man. You know, I remember on one of our famous talk radio stations, I'm pretty sure my number was blocked for a long time. I used to phone it. Every time they spoke about rape, I was like, hey, what about the boys? You know, and they were like, dude, this guy's sickening. Block him. You know, so eventually I got a new number and then I phoned through. But by that time, they started listening. Yeah. You know, and now they phone me, you know, they phone me and ask me for comment. And what do you think of this? What do you think of that? I do a lot of talks on masculinity. You know, I've done like nighttime shows for an hour on masculinity and toxic masculinity and and we do TV talks. And I've been on Morning Live, I've been on 3 Talk, I've been on the news. Yeah, and so we've grown. But I mean, our main focus is helping men recover from abuse and sexual abuse. So not just sexual abuse and rape, but physical abuse as well. Yeah. Because I find they normally go together. You know, it's you don't find you don't find somebody who's sexually abused comes from a neglectful, abusive family, generally, right?
Sure.
You know, I always start this thing as like kids have got these 3 pillars that a kid needs in his life, right? Security, love, and sustenance, right? So security is a place to stay, clothes to wear, protection from the bad guys, you know, a father who's there like, hey, my son, don't worry, you know, I'll look after you. How many people grow up fatherless in this country?
Man.
62%, right? They have sustenance, education, right? Food. So how many people go to bed hungry in this country?
Right.
You know, and we looked, Stats SA published a thing a while ago when I had a look at it and I nearly had a heart attack. But, in South Africa between 2009 and 2014, literacy in the rural areas amongst boys has declined by 30%. It's 16% literacy rate. Whereas girls are up at 35. It's not great. I mean, it's flipping terrible. We should have literacy rates of like 90%. But, you know, still, why are the literacy rates in South Africa so bad? You know, I mean, it's terrible. So we need to kind of start looking at these things and we need to start dealing with them and we need to start talking about them. You know, we can't just leave it. Because the problem is, well, let me go back to the 3 pillars, right? Let me know. You got to contain me, bro. Right? So the 3 pillars, what's the third one? So we've done security, sustenance, and love. Hugs, kisses, encouragement. Hey, bro, you're amazing. Go for it. You can do it. You know, that sort of stuff. Now, if one of those pillars in a child's life is missing, they're going to go and look for it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right? And they're going to find it, but it's not going to be the right stuff, right? So they're going to find love in the form of sex with some pervert. They're going to find security in the form of gang after they've been gang raped as an initiation. Okay? And then sustenance and education is going to be like drugs and alcohol and that sort of stuff and street. You know, so we need to start rectifying our families here. We need to start really changing the way that we look after our children. You know, we need to start encouraging. And this was brought home to me something, and I keep telling the story, and I must actually go back there and get the guy's name, because I went to the Labour Museum, and I bet you didn't even know there was a Labour Museum in Johannesburg, right?
No.
All right, no. There is. So it's across the road from Sibona, which is the bottom end of so Market Theatre, that area. Yeah. There's a Labour theatre. There's a Labour Museum there. It's like, what would we call it? What were those things where the guy used to shove like 500 Zulus in there? Like a big block of, you know.
Like a little hut type thing?
No, it's like I mean, just let's call it a bungalow or whatever.
Oh,
you know?
Okay.
So they would keep laborers there. They would sleep there and shower there and get fed there and all that sort of stuff. But essentially they were just slaves, you know. They would go and like work and they get punished if they didn't come back on time or if they did something wrong. And one of the punishments they got, they would be chained to a tree in the middle of this compound. Compound, that's the word, right? Okay, they would be chained to a tree in the middle of a compound, you know. And like I had 2 epiphanies that day. I was there with a bunch of my friends, and one of the guys was like this muscle-bound black guy, handsome dude, big arms, you know what I mean? And he was standing there and he had his hand on a branch in the tree and he was like looking at this tree and I could see him, this strong man, and he was almost crying, you know, connecting to this picture of this guy chained to the bottom of this tree like a dog, you know, just because of his skin, his race, you know what I mean? It's just, and I could see that connection and that impacted me hugely, you know. I looked at it and I just thought, wow, this guy, I mean, that was generations ago and this guy's feeling that pain. So that means to me that pain is still present. It's still happening, right? Guys are still feeling like slaves, right? So that was the first thing. Then we were walking through and there was a quote there by one of the guys that actually lived there. And he said, I hope my sons aren't kept from their wives like their father was from their mother. And then it struck me like the insidious nature of like, you know, we always go apartheid. You know what? The problem was that by the time apartheid hit, it was already manifest anyway. When the British landed here, dude, they started this crap.
Sure.
You know, where they were just like, because you're black, you're a slave, and because we're white, we're clever and we're entitled. You know what I mean? And we're going to take everything from this land, and you're going to help us dig it out the ground, right?
Yeah.
And so it just struck me. That was the, then, I mean, apartheid came later, but it was the fact that they made it law and they gave it a name. But it's always been there.
It's always been there.
You know what I mean? Look at America today. It's there. Go to Australia. It's worse in Australia than it is here. You know what I mean? It's all over the world. Just we named it, And I think the nice thing about it is because we named it, like us whiteys in South Africa, now we need to kind of man up.
Man.
And we need to look at this and go like, what the hell did we do? So it's not me personally that did it, but hey, you know what I mean? My forefathers and all that sort of stuff.
Sure.
Right? And we got to man up and we got to look at this and we got to go, okay, why? How does this work? And I think it's a great opportunity for change, So, I mean, change comes when you realize your mistakes, eh? That's where your growth comes from.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was, so that was a long rant on fatherlessness.
Man.
And where it comes from. It stems from way back then, because then the father would be working here and his family would be down in the Eastern Cape, and he gets lonely and he gets himself a side chick here, and then she falls pregnant, and then he feels guilty and he doesn't want to go back home, and then he feels bad and he doesn't want to see this one because he doesn't want to tell this one in Joburg about that one down in Eastern Cape, and it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse, and you end up with all these illegitimate children all over the place, and they're all fatherless because the oak is too chicken to face up to his deeds, And we got to start talking about these things. So I mean, a lot of growth and a lot of realizations have come out of all of this for me personally, as a white South African. And I see myself as nothing else, you know what I mean? I am an African, finished,
Sure.
I love this country. I don't want to go anywhere else. I've been elsewhere and I don't like it. And I always want to come home. This is home. This is where I was born.
Yeah.
And this is where I want to stay. This is where I want to help. This is where I want to make an impact and make a difference, And there's a lot to do in Africa, I mean, we've got war rape up, up north. We got the child soldiers who are also again raped to induce them into this army to make them compliant. You got an enemy. How do you emancipate him? You freaking rape him.
And you just rape them.
You rape him, and then he becomes your bitch. To be honest.
So I mean, I want to speak to that now. You're speaking about it now, to rape someone and kind of make them a bitch, right? It's kind of like taking away someone's power, right? Or you try. It's like an extreme version of bullying, right? Raping another man, and that's purely. I wouldn't say for your enjoyment, but that's to make them submit, right? To make them feel lesser, right? And those are such. Terrible examples of men who've come before us, who showed us hey, this is how you want to get power, this is how you do it, right? But I often look at it as, sure, we talk about the people who do the abusing in all this, we know so much about them, right? The abuser is this, you can call them names, but it's the victim who we don't often speak about, and especially because they're male.
Exactly.
There's so much stigma around that. From my black culture is, I'm going to talk to someone about, hey, I had someone who did this and that to me when I was younger. Then it's like, but dude, what are you talking about? One of the things that I read in an article, also in general conversation, is, okay, so you got raped. Does that mean now you're gay, right? That's one of the biggest assumptions. Okay, well, you raped, you gay, or I'm not going to talk about it because, hey, if I start telling someone that someone penetrated me, that means now I'm on the other side of it. And I'm kind of confused now as to who I am, right? How do I engage with women? Because, hey, maybe I got abused by a woman, which is, I think the biggest stat is guys mostly get raped by women. It's not men who do it.
Yeah.
So what is your kind of lens, from looking at it from not the perpetrator, it's like the victims of these crimes, or the people that you've dealt with. What are some of those, myths that you've heard about guys being raped?
Well, that's the thing, is like the big one there is like, you're gay if you were raped by a man, right? No. The other big one is that you're lucky if you were raped by an older woman. Well, I kind of don't classify being raped as being lucky. You know what I mean?
Got an erection, it's assumed that, okay, well, he likes it, right?
And it happens, and I talk, I mean, I do like online sessions with men and women for rape. And a lot of women actually come and say, I orgasmed whilst I was being raped. And I feel bad because I enjoyed it. And I'm going like, no, actually you didn't. A lot of men have that issue. I had a guy who wanted to cut, he's like, ended up in hospital, I don't know how many times, trying to cut his penis off because he felt that his penis betrayed him as a child.
Whoa.
Right?
Whoa.
Because his penis got erect when he was being raped, you know? And I'm going, but it's something, it's called the tickle effect, right?
Man.
So I come and KG's, I don't even know you. And one day I just walk up and I push you down on the couch and I start tickling you. Are you going to laugh?
Of course you're going to laugh.
Exactly, because it's a reflex. It just happens. And that's the same about getting an erection. It's a reflex. It's the same for a woman when she has an orgasm. It's a reflex. It's not that she wanted it or not that you wanted it. In fact, a lot of the time your head is going like, don't, but your penis gets erect anyway. You know, I was on an Islamic radio station or TV station one day talking about this. And I was like, you know, like, I think one of the things that was a bit freaky was that, like, when I was a kid, my dog used to lick my penis and I got it erect, you know. And as the woman freaked her, she was like, don't talk about these things. I was like, well, it's life, you know, that happens, isn't it? It does, you know.
Some bestiality, maybe.
Yeah, you can't talk about this stuff, you know. I'm like, I'm sorry, man. Anyway, that's me. I'm straight up and honest.
Sure.
But it's true, because you do, if you've been raped or sexually abused or whatever as a child, you start developing freakish thoughts about sex. And you start trying to experiment with weird stuff and you know, that sort of thing. You just do, because you sexualized far too young. You know, I mean, kids as young as 8, 9 years old are watching pornography on smartphones nowadays. You know, and we know from research that if kids are exposed to too much like serious pornography, it's almost the same as being physically, sexually raped. The effect on their minds long term. You know, so it messes up the way they think about sex. Messes up. And you'll find that survivors of sexual abuse and rape and all that sort of stuff can't have good relationships.
No, you can't.
They struggle because they don't understand what it's about. They, you know, for me, it was like sex was love, right? I was taught from a very young age, if you love somebody, you have sex with them, right? So every time I met somebody, it was like, I want to have sex. Like, if you don't love me and you don't love me if you don't have sex with me, like the first 2 days. And like, then I'm out of there. Bye, you know. And then I would like have sex with somebody, and then, I mean, as part of my healing journey, I went back to all my old girlfriends that I could remember and actually apologized to all of them. And kind of explained to them, look, this is why I did it. And I know it's not going to make your life better, but I just feel I have to tell you so that hopefully you understand. So you're gay if you were raped by a man, or you're lucky if you were raped by a woman. You must have wanted it. There's something wrong with you. You know, so those are a few of the myths. You know, that you might have, especially for a lot of guys, think they kind of brought it on.
Yeah.
A lot of guys think that they could have stopped it. So this is another myth. You can't when you're a kid. You know, I was counseling one guy and he kept saying, I could have stopped it. I could have stopped it. And I looked at him and I said, how old are you? He said, I was 12. How tall were you when this happened to you? You know, and he's like, I said, show me. And he was like, realistically, I was about that big. Okay. And the guy that raped you? No, he was like much bigger. So I'm like, you're a kid. What are you going to do about it, you know? And it kind of dawned on him that, there's nothing I could have done, you know? So it happens. But also the other thing is that, like, kids aren't given the tools to deal with this sort of thing. Yeah. You know, we don't have the skills. So you can't tell somebody, hey, don't touch me or whatever. Because you're taught, respect your elders, don't talk back, you know, that sort of stuff. So, and it was like, I always encourage parents to teach their children to push somebody's hand off. If somebody comes and sits next to you and puts his hand on your knee, like, push it off and say, don't touch me, please. You can be respectful, but if they do it again, then they must slap the hand and scream, don't touch me, you pervert, you know, and then run away. It's like the oak will never...
and then it's like, oops, it's embarrassing for the guy who's actually
Exactly,
trying. Man.
You know, but we feel like our kids aren't allowed to say that thing. Well, what's the alternative? Kid gets raped? Is that better, you know? And it was that old saying, it's like easier to prevent children from being abused than trying to fix them that have been abused.
Man.
Because it takes 3 to 5 years, you know.
To undo all of that hurt.
Yeah, and then you still, you know what I mean? I've been doing this for 12 years. I still have triggers sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm in a session and somebody's talking and then, bam, something comes back, a memory or something, and it like sometimes it gets me. I'm like, whoa, oh wow, okay, I wasn't expecting that, you know.
Sure.
So yeah, and we need to get real. I mean, children, because they don't have the skills to protect themselves, there's the three reactions, right? Fight, flight, or freeze. And 99.9% of children will freeze because it's an adult. We're taught to respect our elders, even in your culture, right?
Yeah, I mean, with us, it's respect the elders. Don't even look them in the eye, right? Don't even talk back to your elders. So you can just imagine an elder trying to do something to you, and number one is you have to respect them. So how do I even have the vocabulary? Not even the vocabulary, just the can I call it the attitude or the energy or even the idea or the imagination to think up, such a thing, to say, hey, dude, stop.
Yeah.
For me to even say those words, stop, for little kids to tell an elderly person to stop doing something, that's seen as kind of disrespect. So I can definitely agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. But also, I mean, kids don't have the language, so they don't know about sex. They don't know about being groomed. They don't know these things. They don't understand what's happening, but their minds are going like freaking out, right? Wow, this guy's doing this to my leg. What's he doing it for? So the head's screaming, ah! But he doesn't have the language. He doesn't know what the outcome is going to be. So he doesn't know how to say, stop, I don't like that, And we need, as parents now, we need to empower our children to do that. We need to give them the skills. We need to say, no, it's cool to say that. It doesn't matter. I don't care about the elders. I really don't. If somebody's about to hurt you, tell them to piss off. Man. Honestly.
And I mean, there's now this, there's a stigma attached to that, right? There's an awkwardness that comes with that kind of conversation. I mean, you can think to a small thing as, sex talk, sex education. In 2022, parents are still like, okay, well, what do we do? How do we, where I'm like, well, I was in school. I'm sure 10 years ago, we were being told about sex. We had condoms being brought to our school and that type of thing. But you can't even tell them about, sex. So how are you even going to approach the subject of rape, of someone touching you in places that you don't agree with? So how would you even coach someone or coach a parent or get them to navigate that kind of conversations?
The first thing I do with parents is the biggest mistake parents make is that life must always be nice. Oof. Right?
Yes.
So when they pick you up from school, they go, how was your day? Did you have fun today? Did you play with your friends? Did you have nice lunch? Everything must be nice, all the time. And I'm going like, don't do that. It's the first thing you ask, what was the worst part of your day?
Man.
Right? And the kid goes like, huh? It was like, no, I didn't have a bad day. No, something bad must have happened today. What was the worst part of your day? Tell me. I want to know. Oh, well, so-and-so called me a name. Okay, how did that make you feel? Now we get into the place of, right? Now, because feelings and emotions, there's two actions to an emotion. It's a thing in your head, but it's also a thing in your gut, right?
Yeah.
So you have this mind-gut connection that gives you what we call an emotion, okay? And the funny thing is you go to men and you say to them, give me words for emotions. They'll probably give you like maybe 7 or 8. Normally they start with anger. I'm going like, why? But like there's so many other things. Why do you always start with anger, But it's true. I mean, I suppose I deal with a lot of angry men then, right? Whereas women, you go and say, give me words for emotions, you'll be like 6 weeks, brother. You'll be...
Oh, there you going, and they can't even stop. You're like, okay, that's enough, that's enough.
Stop now, I get it. You have lots of emotions, okay? Oh, I mean, there's things like, I never thought of care as an emotion. It's like, so... Yeah, so we need to learn, and by parents doing that sort of thing, by saying, giving their children permission to feel those emotions and experience those emotions. So your friend called you a name, how did that make you feel?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And let him run through it. Let him go through how it made him feel, because then he has an emotion. He now has words to explain that thing that happened to him.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And it needs to be a regular thing. It's like you can change it up. So what were the good things that happened today? And then, okay, now tell me the bad things.
Yes.
It doesn't always have to be the bad things first. But what you're doing is giving them permission to talk about the bad stuff. Then they know if something bad happens to them, they can come to you and talk about the bad stuff because you're listening, right? So that's the first thing for parents. Then the other thing is I teach them is that you push the hand off. You know, if somebody touches you, there's no reason an adult needs to put his hand on your knee or her hand on your knee. You know what I mean? There's no reason why an adult has to touch you in your groin or touch your shoulder even. You know what I mean? And I know it's an issue for teachers because sometimes a teacher will come and put his hand on your shoulder, stand behind you and check your schoolwork or whatever. Cool, but you can just say like, don't do that, please. It makes me uncomfortable. But give your kids permission to do that and give them the skills to do that. Yeah, and then I suppose for children, I teach the same skills, but for survivors of abuse, that's a long process. It's a long process, and it starts with them admitting that they were victims of abuse. And then we go through a long process of giving yourself permission to heal, committing to healing. And we go through, and there's one phase where we actually talk about the different types of abuses because men and women alike, we don't go through one particular abuse. You know what I mean? It's not just because I was sexually abused. You probably find the oak was neglected, the oak was probably verbally, emotionally abused, that sort of stuff. And it's a very difficult time because you get some people who think their parents were like wonderful. Like my mother was amazing, dude. She really cared for me. And then we get to that phase when they you go through and it's like, it's actually weird, but my mom used to like really be aggressive and beat me quite a lot. And she used to call me names. And then again, now we start going, okay, so the verbal and emotional and physical abuse led to you probably going out and getting sexually abused, that sort of stuff. So they have to process all of that, right? And then accept it. And then we need to rewrite the narrative because we've all got this no, we're useless, we're not good enough voice in our heads, right? And it comes from a crappy childhood. Let's put it that way, But even people who are raised in amazing homes, still somebody might say, you might be at school and you don't really function that well in a particular subject. And the teacher then turns around and said, you're so stupid. You're useless. You'll never amount to anything. Now that becomes a voice in your head when you're an adult, right? Like 20 years later, you're trying to start a business and this teacher's voice keeps telling you that you're stupid, you're useless, you're never going to amount to anything, So how do you get over that? How do you rewrite that? How do you reprogram your brain? Because we have amazing plasticity in the brain. We know this neuroplasticity, and you can reprogram your brain. If you want to cast this thing in another myth that I despise intensely is this will affect me for the rest of my life. Yes, you've let it affect you to this point, but you can change the narrative. Healing is a choice. You can carry on as a victim for the rest of your life. You can go like, I was abused as a child, I was raped as a child, and everybody will feel sorry for you. But eventually all your friends are like, you know what, we've heard this so many times now, dude. And then they're not your friends anymore. They bail because they're so tired. You're like one of those people that sucks the energy out of everybody, And they're like, no, it's cool, thanks. We go in, we're moving on, And hopefully you get to a point where you go like, my life, I'm lonely, life sucks. Maybe I should do something about it. Okay, So healing is a choice. And if you choose to heal, you can heal. You can't hang on to this thing like I'm going to be this. It's like why I hate these 12-step programs, right? Because they make you stand up and admit that you're a failure. Every freaking week you have to go to this thing and stand up. Oh, my name's Martin and I'm an addict.
And you realize that, oh man, been going through the same feedback loop.
I keep telling myself I'm an addict. Am I ever going to stop being an addict then? Never. Know what I mean? So I was like, okay, I put a time limit on my recovery at 12-step program. I was going to do it for 2 years. After 6 months, I was running the place.
Wow.
And and just, I learned from it, but I'm that type of person, I step up, So if I see things aren't being done well, I was like, no. Let me step in there, But it doesn't help me in my healing process. But I still, I worked hard at it, I took 2 years to really work on me. And that's the other interesting thing in life is once you start the healing process, it never stops until you die.
You're constantly on it. It's not a destination, right? It's an ongoing thing.
Ongoing.
I love that, man. And I wanna talk to something you mentioned now about, you talk to your friends about, hey, I've got this issue, I've got this problem, and it's like years on years on years. But we often say, I think we spoke about it in one of the episodes on the podcast, is that, sometimes in our friend groups, we might be telling people stuff about ourselves that they're not really ready to deal with. They're not equipped to deal with that kind of stuff. And especially when it comes to like this type of abuse, it's like, oh, dude, now you're like telling us some other stuff,
Yeah.
Then maybe you're telling the wrong people. It's not that they don't want to help you, but it's just like, hey man, this is like really hard for us, why do we keep on coming here with this kind of stuff, right? So to someone who's listening to this, who might be going through it, and like, it's been years I've been telling people this stuff, but they're not really hearing me, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had some friends of mine who have told that, hey, this and that happened to me when I was younger. Then it's like, yeah, but look at you now, man. You're good, right? It's like, yeah, sure, let's have some beers. Forget about it, right? Then we move on.
But you can't forget about it.
You can't forget about it, right? So then, there's that fine line of, yeah, sure, I can't just go to like a stranger and tell them this, but yeah, I can tell my friend because, they know me, right?
You can't?
They would.
You can't? I did. I was like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So like in my business, people would like, so what do you do? I got like, there's security, but at night I help male survivors of sexual abuse. And they're like, what? Where do they come from?
Man.
And like, people accepted me. I think in all the hundreds and seriously thousands of people that I've told, there's like only one person outright rejected me.
Wow.
Only one.
Wow.
No, two. I lied. There was some guy who was like, oh, shame, you were the rape boy. But then I don't get angry with them because they're going through their own issues. So speaking to your point, right? So understand something. In South Africa, more boys are sexually abused than girls every year, right? So we firstly, is there support for the boys?
Well, I only know you.
Exactly, right? So where are the rape crisis centers for boys? There are none.
None.
Right? When you walk into a rape crisis center that it says they help boys, look at the pictures on the wall and then tell me that they're helping boys. They're not, because all the pictures are of girls and women, right? Yeah. And always men, the abusers. How many boys have been raped by women in this country? 41% of all victims, right? 27% are raped by both male and female, and 32% by men.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And 44% of all boys have been sexually abused by the age of 18. That's nearly half the population of the country. You know what I mean? Male population of the country. Man. So now when you walk into a room with friends and go, hey guys, I was raped as a child. No wonder you get that reaction, because the oaks are going like, I don't want to talk about this because so was I. Right? So at least half of them. Right, so a lot of them are going to push back and say, I don't want to, hey, why are you talking about this? And then you get that famous thing, just forget about it, it'll go away. But it doesn't. It's one of those things that stays churning around in your subconscious. Whether you're thinking about it or not, it's still there. Those memories are there. It's impacted on your life hugely. It changes the way you think about yourself. It changes the way you speak about yourself. It changes the way you think about the world. It changes your way you interact with people. You can't trust people anymore because you were raped. Right? So are you going to make really tight friendships? No, because you don't trust people. Right? So, and you never know when you're busy doing something if something's going to pop up that triggers you. You might be watching a movie.
And there it's happening right there.
Bam. And it was you there with this young chick you're trying to impress, Hey, baby, let's watch this romantic movie. You know. And all of a sudden, there's a scene on TV that reminds you of when you were being raped as a child by some woman. And you're like, things deflate. And she's like, oh, baby, this is a hot movie. Let's do something. You're like, no, leave me.
No, I can't.
You know what I mean? And you don't know why you're crying. You're like, oh, what's happening? I'm crying. I don't want to be crying. And she's like, what's wrong with you, baby? And boom, she's gone, So it does. It impacts you. You can't forget about it.
So what are some of the methods that you guys are using to address this now? So obviously you spoke to counseling, and one of the other things that you do is group counseling, right?
Yeah.
So obviously in a group counseling session, or not obviously, because it's not obvious to everyone, but I think in a group counseling session, whereas I'm a newbie in that session, I'm then, coming in, bright-eyed, and I'm like, okay, geez, does that mean now I have to divulge everything that's happened? Is there like a process that we guide people through?
Well, let's put it this way. You're not coming into my groups bright-eyed the first time. I can promise you that. You're going to be pooing yourself. You're going to be like, what's happening? You're going to be like petrified. You're going to be in shock. But that's cool. No, we don't push people. You know what I mean? It's the group is there. And you can take a week, a month, 2 months to get comfortable. I don't care. You know what I mean? I'm not going to force you to. It's like the most I'll say is like, you want to give us a name, or you want to talk about anything.
Sure.
How you feeling this week? That sort of stuff. And then we get into the program and we talk about stuff. And let's put it this way: I've never had a guy come in here and not speak in the first meeting.
Wow.
Because when they suddenly get that opportunity to open their mouths, you can't shut them up, dude. Suddenly when they see, hey, I'm not the only one, this has happened to other guys as well, then they just, they go. Man. Yeah. My first introduction to most guys is about a 2-hour talk. And I don't say anything. I just go like, so tell me about your childhood. And then they just, and then like 2 hours later, I go like, okay.
Oh, wow.
You want to fix that? Yeah, that'd be cool. Okay, come to the group. That's it, Wow. So by the time men actually start talking about these things, they're desperate to get it out of their heads, essentially. But it does, like I say, it's a 3 to 5 year program,
Sure.
3 to 5 years. We work on it for a year, and then after that, it's up to you to work on you, you know what I mean? So some of the things we encourage, journaling, definitely. Even for the guys listening, if you don't want to go to a group because you're afraid, start writing your life story. Just self-author, we call it self-author. And you write about your past, what happened to you in the past, those things that impacted you in your past, the things you like about your childhood, the things you hate about your childhood. Then you write about your present, right? Who am I now? And that's another thing. Who am I, Who am I now? What do I like about myself? What don't I like? And you've got to be honest, be brutally honest. And then you write about my future. What do I want to be in a year's time, 2 years' time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time? And the next year you come back to your book and you read through it and you go like, well, I said in a year's time I want to be here. Am I here? Yes or no? Right? Why? If no, why not? What have I, So for me, procrastination is a big one, right? So I need to work on procrastination. Yeah, I am. Like, this is the 12th year I'm working on
And you're still like,
I'm still
procrastinating.
Yeah. I'm good at it. I'm the king.
It's a process.
It is a process, and I never put unrealistic expectations on yourself. Just set yourself realistic goals.
I love that, man, because there's this idea when people think of coaching, therapy, counseling, it's like, well, the counselor is just gonna say a few things and I'll be fine, right? But it's actually the opposite of that. The work is actually on you. As a counselor is just there to guide, to give you a kind of a roadmap.
Exactly.
But the rest of the journey is yours, right?
Yeah. So like people coming to me for coaching, I'm going like, okay, so what do you want to achieve out of this session? It's not up to me. You set the tone. You set so what am I going to achieve? By the time we finish talking for an hour, what is it that you want an answer to? What do you want to set out? Are we going to make a plan? Are we going to work on this trait? Are we going to work on this character flaw? Are we going to improve here? What are we going to do? You choose.
Sure.
And then I'll guide you through that. So I'm not going to give you the answers. I'm going to guide you so that you find your own answers. And that's what a good coach does. Because if I kind of push you and say, do this, then you come back next week and say, but like, I didn't want to do that. You told me to.
And it's like, where's the accountability on your end?
You see. So I need to make you, KG, what do you want to achieve here? What goal do you set for yourself, right? How are we going to get there? How are you going to get there, right? And all I'm here for is like, you can phone me halfway through the week and go like, hey, I had a bit of a hiccup on this step. What do you think I should do? And I go, well, what do you think you should do?
Man.
It's not like the therapy thing is like, so how did that make you feel, So it's like you make your own decisions. I'm just giving you the courage because I'm supporting you. I'm going like, you can do it, dude. I know you can. You're a bright young guy. You're handsome. You can do it. You know, come on.
Man.
What are you afraid of? What's saying no in your head? Let's talk about that, you know, and guide you through that process. So that's good coaching. My groups are different. My groups are there, and it's like, so my groups, I use a lot of my own examples, my life, right? I had a pastor years ago, he said to me, he says, if you don't know the right thing to say or the right scriptures to give your own testimony.
Wow.
And that's powerful for me because you can't boggle my mind with all sorts of apologetics and nonsense and atheism and science and all that sort of stuff. I'm giving you my story. This is how I came to know the Lord, and this is how my life changed.
Man.
You know, this is where I came from. This is where I am now. You can't take that away from me. It's my story. You know? So I use my story a lot in our healing sessions. So once a week I do an online one, and I do an in-person one every 2 weeks. And it's powerful, dude. Lives are changed. I mean, they are. They literally. I watch men's lives transform in front of my eyes. You know what I mean? Like they leave on a Monday night. They leave, and like 2 weeks later they come back, and like they're different. You know, wow. There's a life in their eyes. There's a sparkle. Their skin is different. They're walking up straighter. You know. And you know, we go through a lot of tools. There's like NLP I'll use, neuroscience I'll use.
Sure. You
know, so I always do something like, it's called the Superman pose.
Okay.
I'm going to give you guys all that.
So you get the guys to stand and like feel like a hero and that. Yeah.
Now you do that for 2 minutes every morning. Right? And imagine yourself being like that conquering Superman on top of the Empire State Building, like checking the world. Hey, I'm so powerful, you know? And you practice that pose for 2 minutes, right? And when you get into a difficult situation, like just say, sorry, can I have like 10 seconds, please? Back out, find a bathroom somewhere, stand like this.
Get back.
And then watch your whole mind change, right? Because one of the weirdest things about your brain is the best lie detector ever made, right?
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So when I come and I'm now trying to do this whole toxic positivity thing, like, I can do it, I'm amazing, like, oh, I'm so fantastic. Your brain is going like, what are you talking about, dude?
Not
your
amazing.
body language and everything about you is telling me you're lying. Right?
Man.
But you're trying to like talk yourself up, like, I'm so incredible, you know. Doesn't work.
You need one way to that.
That's it. There's only way to fool your brain into being positive is to stand like you mean it. Right? And you crack that Superman pose and your body goes like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah.
I'm not feeling lacquer, but the body is telling me I'm feeling amazing. Well, then I must be amazing, right? And I promise you, 5 seconds, when you're in a tight, like when I'm going to an interview or something like that, I stand outside, I just crack my Batman.
Just remind yourself,
Yeah. And I walk in there, and everybody goes like, oh, you're really good at this. Yeah, I've been practicing a long time, but hey, I'm positive about my body language. Everything about me is positive, right? So that's it.
And then, you know, you spoke earlier about, you know, in the coaching world, there's a big, I don't want to call it a gap, but it is a gap actually, of men that are not practicing either in the counseling world, and men who are not taking coaching and therapy seriously, right? And one of those reasons could be because, hey, I'm going there, then I'm like, I have to talk to this woman about all of these issues. I might be having, you know, erection issues. I might be having, you know, whatever other issues that are quite manly. And I'm like, well, why would I even go to a woman, you know, about that? So I've had this question to my coach as well. And I asked her, like, well, what do you think? You know, would it be beneficial for me to maybe go talk about some of this stuff to a man? Or, you know, do you think it's best, you know, to stick with you? And an interesting answer that she gave me was, KG, you know, in both senses, you are right. You know, you could go to a man and they could tell you whatever. You could come to me and I could tell you whatever. But I will tell you that a large percentage of my clients are men. And I read an article which, funny enough, spoke about men who use their wives as their counselor, as they coach and that type of thing, because we don't have a group of men that we can go to about our issues or about our problems or anything that bothers us for that matter. So, according to your understanding and what you've got to learn in your 12 years of doing this, do you think for guys it would be beneficial to maybe, if you are looking into going into coaching, maybe look at going, for a male counselor first before you go to a female counselor? Or does that even matter?
I don't think it matters, bro, because it's, you always got to kind of build up a trust relationship with a counselor or a therapist or something.
Yeah.
And I think men have an issue because they're like, well, and I've got to sit there and talk about all sorts of stuff that I don't want to talk about. Well, you know what? Actually, what you're doing is you're paying for a friend, right? A friend you can trust not to go and tell your other friends the stuff that you're talking about. A friend you can trust to keep your secrets. A friend you can trust to not ridicule you when you say something like, hey, I was raped as a child or whatever. But the thing is, like, for me, it's like when I started this journey, right, I went to a therapist, a psychologist, okay? And I was like 2-3 sessions, and then I thought, no, I like her. I have an issue with men.
Sure.
So I don't go to men, right? But that's my life, So I suppose the guys that hurt me, the people who raped me worst were like men. So women, understandably, it's a bit different, right? So I had trust issues with men, so I went to a woman psychologist, and I spoke to her, and eventually I thought, okay, I kind of trust her. Let me throw out the big one, right?
Sure.
Okay, and I go like, I look at her and I go, but now I was like, I'm checking her, right? And I go like, I was raped as a child. And if she just like shifts in her chair or looks down or swallows or anything, dude, finished. Then I'm out of there. And then I just shut up and I keep quiet. And then I go, I'll look at her and go like, we can sit here for an hour. You're just going to waste your time. And then I duck, right? And I did that 5 times, right? And eventually, I was like, my ex-wife came to me and she says, I've heard of this place called Sophia Town, the Therapeutic Services. It was an MPO, and why don't you try them? So I phoned them and I said, okay, I need to talk to somebody because like my brain was spinning out of control, right? So I end up at a church and he has this saintly old man. He's like short, grey, very sweet, gentle face. You know what I mean? And he came in and I started talking, and I was allowed 6 sessions with these guys, right? It cost me 50 Rand a session. Wow, heavy, eh?
Wow. And
so I, like the 5th session, I decided, okay, I'm going to tell this guy the story, So I looked at him and I say, I just want to tell you, that I was raped as a child. But now I'm like checking him out, like just looking at him. And he sat there in dead straight face. He looked at me and he said, I'm sorry. Do you want to tell me some more? Man, and that was it. And I just opened up and let it all out, and just spoke and spoke. Eventually he phoned his supervisors and said, listen, I know I've done 6 sessions with this, but he's going to need like another 10. And they were like, no, we can't do 10. He says, please, okay, let me do another 6 and see where we're at, and then I'll talk to you again. So they were like, okay, fine. So I ended up doing about 15 sessions with him.
Wow.
And it was an rank amateur who just does it for the love of helping people, who actually helped me at the end of the day. My organization, we did research into this as well, through Tyson, our researcher. He came to us from SACAP, South African College of Applied Psychology. And his research was what helped male survivors the most. And it was never a psychologist, never. In fact, one of our members actually saw a psychiatrist and a psychologist for like 10 years, and he never told them about his sexual abuse.
Wow.
And you're going like, what's the point, dude? Because that's like the center of all your issues.
Yeah.
Like, and you don't want to talk to them about it. I mean, so what does that mean? You don't trust. And that's not cool. You can't go to a therapist and not trust. So pick somebody that you trust and pick the worst story. And if they don't flinch and they say, well, tell me more. Man. Then you carry on, then you're cool. So if you go to a therapist and you say, hey, I've got erectile dysfunction, and she goes, oh, I'm sorry about that, tell me more, then then you're at the right place.
Sure.
She doesn't like judge you like, what? You're not a man, you know, that sort of stuff. Yeah. So it's hard to say. I mean, you gotta feel it. You gotta feel it in your gut, you know. And if that connection is there, it's there. It doesn't matter if it's a male or female. But you know, if somebody wants to become a life coach, you become a life coach because you have a passion for it, not because it's a great career and you wanna do it. You know, everybody's doing it. You know, it's like I don't even want to call myself a coach anymore because it's like every Tom, Dick, and fart out there is a coach nowadays. You know, it's like I can study on edX or Udemy for free, and it's like, hey, I'm a life coach.
Life coach. No.
Yeah. You know?
Oh man, nothing beats it. Life, like lived experience more than.
You know what? It's one of those things. Like I have that. You know, you can't put over like 58 years of experience and crap experience.
And you had to really go through it. Huh?
I went through the ringer. It's like 5 suicide attempts, alcoholism, addiction, abusive ex-wife. I didn't even realize it, you know.
Man.
So, yeah.
I mean, we speak now about sexual immorality. You know, it's like this big growth in porn, the porn industry. So when I see that, I'm like, sure, I know with my experience, you know, I've had like somewhat of a battle with porn over the years, right? And I've gotten to a point now, it's like, oh, I've actually gone through quite a long time without checking none of this stuff. And when I see it, it's like, I don't want to watch that, right? But there's a huge thing about it, right? Is maybe accessibility or whatever, you know. But I'm looking at it like, are really people that traumatized that that's like our only kind of go-to? Well,
they are. I mean, life is tough, you know what I mean? And feminism is like kicking masculinity or trying to kick masculinity in the butt, right? So we're kind of looking at this thing, we're going like, what are men these days besides ATMs? You know, and then we look at it, you know what, it's like BEEBBBEE is no longer beneficial to, like, I'm a black man with an education. It's no longer good enough. You have to be a black woman with a missing limb, you know.
And it just keeps on adding up.
And you know, eventually, so like now even our own black children, our own black boys can't get jobs in corporates because they're not women. So, you know, firstly, they weren't white enough. Now they're not black enough. Now they're not, you know what I mean? And so what do they do? So, but I think the big thing here is that it's all about, you know, the mate of mine, Max Moyo, he put it beautifully. And he's like, it was a punch in my gut when I listened to him talk on this. And he said, your bank balance is intricately connected to your self-worth. Right? He says, doesn't matter how much money you earn, if you have no self-image and no self-worth, you're never going to have a bank balance, right? So he comes from the angle, he says he grew up as like a shepherd boy in Zimbabwe there, you know? And he was like, yeah, I mean, whatever the story was, but he grew up feeling inferior. Eventually comes down to South Africa, studies marketing, becomes the first black marketing director of a big insurance company, right? And he's like, man, I've arrived. I'm earning like $2.5 million a year. When we're talking years ago, right? And he's going like, hey, it's more than ministers earn now.
Yeah, I'm in there, man.
Right. And he's like, so what's the first thing he does? That big black Range Rover, right? And what's the next thing? S-Class Mercedes. Next thing, big house in Sandton. Next thing, little Mini, just for fun, you know, run around.
Yeah, like my day-to-day car. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and then all the image, looking good, you know. And ultimately what happens is like 2 years later, like the insurance companies, there was a group of 3, they get together and they go like, we've like all insurance companies. And so we got 3 CEOs, 3 MDs, 3 marketing managers, 3 financial directors, 3. And why do that? You know, let's make it 1. Wakes up the next morning, 10 million in debt, no job. You know, now what? Right?
Who are you now?
Who are you now? Without the paycheck that you thought you were going to be getting for the rest of your life. So he says, like, who moved my cheese? He says, no, somebody moved my ladder because that was my corporate ladder. I was climbing it. And it's gone now. Somebody took it, you know. So, yeah, so he ended up in debt, blacklisted, And he says he still remembers the day he took his Range Rover back to West Bank, and he said, here's the keys. I can't afford this anymore. And the guy was like, you're going to be blacklisted for 30 years. He says, I hope you blacklist me for life, because if I can't afford to buy it cash, I never want to buy it. He says, and it was the best thing that happened to him. Now the Oak has spoken to over 10 million people around the world. He's one of our best speakers. He's an amazing guy, full of energy, full of life, you know?
Yeah.
But true. I mean, your bank balance is tied to your self-worth. And if you don't have self-worth, you're going to try and buy it. Or you're going to try and buy friends. Or you're going to be that guy that goes to the shebeen and buys the black label. You know, and you're going to waste your money so that you can look fly or good. Somebody said I mustn't use that. The young guys I spoke to at university, they're like, no, that's old people.
You can be lit. Now, the language now is lit.
Anyway, so we need to, and it starts there, you know. I mean, if you can't wake up in the morning and look into the mirror and go like, look deeply into your own eyes and say, hey, you know what, you're an amazing guy.
Man.
There's something wrong in your head, you know, and you've got to fix it. Otherwise, you're never going to achieve anything. You're never going to amount to much.
Man.
You know, you're just going to be in debt for the rest of your life.
Jeez,
it's fact.
Jeez, guys. I think we shouldn't rob ourselves of an opportunity to be well, man. You know, opportunity for yourself to just be you. You know, there's a lot of, like you just said now, there are a lot of coaches in the world, right? Everyone is a philosopher now. Everyone is got these amazing quotes of how you should be, where you should be, how to get there, and all of these things. But I think if you just, you know, sit with your Bible, man. You know, we spoke about God just now. You know? I think there's no greater way of getting into yourself than through the word, right?
Yeah.
Through prayer, through sitting and meditating on the word, or just going for walks, you know, and having those, you know, I always think of thoughts I have when I go on my bike rides. Like, those are prayers, you know, because I'm not talking to anyone. These are just me and some source or some power that I don't even see. But we're having this exchange and asking, you know, but man, I wonder how this thing would work out if I tried it this way, you know? Or yeah, I'm just grateful for like 2 or 3 things in my day today, you know? Yeah. I'm grateful to just be on this bike ride, you know? Those moments where you can just take stock of whatever is in your life and say, sure, I'm thankful for this. How can I then move to the next thing that I want? You know?
Yeah.
I wish for every guy to like do that for yourself, man, before you go out there and start reaching for these toxic things that don't help us at all. Obviously, there's a bar. I know every one of us enjoys a drink. Maybe not everyone. I'll speak for myself.
Yeah, I've had my share.
You know, we enjoy a drink. We enjoy being with guys that make us feel happy for that moment. But I think it goes beyond just the moment where you're celebrating with a bunch of friends. You know? Like you say, Martin, if you can be by yourself and be like, sure, you know, I'd love to see my friends, but hey, I'm at peace with who I am. I don't
That's
mind
a big
shit.
teller, man. That's a big teller. You know, if you can sit at home by yourself, not with the TV on and all that. So yeah, have music playing and whatever, and just be happy that you're there, you exist. You know, I mean, there's also Max. I mean, he's like, this guy's talk impacted me heavily. He says to me that there's 8 billion people in the world, right? Right now, the 8 billion people in the world. But there's only 1 kg.
Yes.
And there will ever only be 1 kg. There has only ever been 1 kg. There will never be another one like you. You are here, you are now, the only one of your kind. There might be somebody who looks similar to you or talks similar or acts similar or whatever, but it's not the same, right? I mean, it's pointless having like 10 people the same, because you might as well not exist, right?
Exactly.
But everything about you is unique. So why don't you think that you're unique, right? So if you're that unique, do you think that you were created without a purpose?
Of course you have a purpose, man.
Exactly.
Man.
Everybody has a purpose. It's just people don't want to fall into that. They want to open their eyes up to that reality.
Man.
You know? And you have something, a purpose, a passion, something that you love doing. You know what I mean? And that's what you need to focus your energy on. Yeah. And love yourself. Yeah. Big time.
That's the biggest thing, huh? I think, Martin, what I like about, or actually what I love about it, man, I'm trying to stop myself from saying I like. You know, you can like things and it's just like fallible, but I love the way you talk about this topic in such lightness as well. Because, you know, it's such a victim type of thing. You know, it's like, oh, yeah, this happened to me. You know, I wanna, you know, I kind of hide it, you know, but you like, geez, oh, yeah, it happened. Ha, ha, ha. Whatever. Like, stop being that victim. Get up and get out there, you know, shake that thing off. It's not that easy to say because you've done the process, you've done your work. I've done my work and I'm still, you know, grappling with some things, but I'm much more better for it at the point in my life where I am now. But I wanna, you know, to someone who's listening, and I always, you know, have these moments where I just like, I know someone out there is actually dealing with it right now, you know, they're hurting and they're feeling like very victimized and that type of thing, because it can get you in that funk. Some days, you know, I get it too. But, you know, what should you do, man? I can't journal. I don't know what that process is like. But, you know, just so I don't feel like, shit, I'm alone in this thing.
Yeah. I think, you know what, for me, the victimhood stops when you start talking. You know, for me, I could read books and I could do all sorts of things, but nothing would have changed until the day I opened my mouth and said yes. Yeah. I was raped as a child. Yeah. You know, it's that thing like, you know, in any program that you go into, like addiction, your first step is always admitting that you got a problem, right? And the thing is, and it's hard because it's very different for everybody. You know, your trauma, you know, and like I get a guy came to me and said, my dad just used to beat me up. I go like, sorry, he what? No, he just used to beat me up. I go, just. That's a big thing. Yeah, but it's not as bad as your story. I'm going like
what?
What are you talking about? You know, like my story is my story. That was my worst day.
Sure.
Right? Your story, that's your story. That's your worst day. Trauma is trauma, right? So when you get to a point where you realize that you've had a worst day, right, and you realize what that worst day is, then try and find somebody to talk through with that. You know, nowadays, I mean, technology is so powerful nowadays. You know, I mean, we have the online healing groups. I'm busy trying to set up a way that we can actually do like worldwide healing groups, you know, where we go through programs and we talk about how to recover from abuse and all that sort of stuff. But it's available, you know. I mean, you can log in. I do it via an app, an online app called Join Panda. You know, it's a mental health app. So the first 3 are free, and then it's like $150 for an hour, which is great. I mean, it's not bad, you know. Yeah. It's really not. I know it sounds like a lot, but if you go to a psychologist, I mean, that's like you're talking $800-900 an hour. You know, exactly. You go to a life coach, is like a good one is like 1,000, 2,000,
maybe 2,000 sometimes.
Yeah, you know. So, damn, I need to charge more.
Man, that's the game, man. I'm throwing those numbers at you. I'm like, Martin, I think you're a little bit too cheap. Huh?
Yeah, it's not about that. You know, I mean, I run my business and I kind of earn all right from that, and I help people because it's a passion. It's not a, you know. Sure. But I also realize that if you don't charge people for things, they don't appreciate it as well.
Exactly.
You know, if they get it for free, they don't really work as hard at it. So charge something. But you know, for guys that are first, just get to that realization where you understand that something happened to you. That, you know, and the problem is that if you were abused, sexually abused, raped, whatever as a child, right, you adapt the way that you deal with life. Okay? So now you end up as an adult, like you're 22, 23, you're lying around the house, you're depressed, like all you want to do is watch Netflix, smoke ganja. You know, I mean, what's the point of living then? And what you're not realizing is that you are like that now because of what happened to you as a child. You're like that now because you've adapted your behaviors to try and survive.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Through all of that. And the fact is that you need to wake up one day and go, you know what? I actually give myself some praise because I'm alive. I survived all of that. I got through it and I'm here. So there must be a reason. Man, I look at my life, 5 suicide attempts. I used to drink and drive like you can't believe. I think I had three major accidents where I could have been dead.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And I'm still here. You and that means I have a purpose. That means that my work's not finished. That means I need to keep doing what I'm doing, I need to keep going. And everybody has that purpose in life. And if you're still alive at 23 and you've been raped as a child and you've been abused or beaten by your father, or, I got a guy, I'm trying to remember his name now. This guy came and we sat down and we spoke. And he says, you know what, my mother used to take my little brother and those paint tins.
Yeah.
And they put a grill and they punch it full of, what do you call those?
It was to like water stuff or to make a fire.
Like
to
make a fire. Mbawla,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
She would put his little brother on this hot thing like that. He would burn his ass, you know what I mean? So his little brother became a Nyapi addict and is still a Nyapi addict. His oldest brother ended up stabbing his girlfriend to death in front of a police station 14 times. Man.
What?
Okay? He was an addict. He eventually ended up going to the house to murder his own mother with a baseball bat. When the neighbor, he'd beaten her, He'd smacked her around, and when the neighbor pulled him off, and the neighbor said to him, and a big guy said to him, I know what you went through, don't waste your life on her.
Man.
All right. He ended up serving, I think, 3 years in jail for attempted murder on his mother, right? And he's come out and he's written a book about his life, and he goes around to schools and he talks to other kids about it and all that sort of stuff. There's a prime example, you know what I mean? His mother used to, the stuff that she did to her 3 boys, unbelievable, sick, dude. She should have been in jail, you know what I mean? But these things don't happen. But the fact is, he survived, and he's doing something about it, you know what I mean? He's trying to help his little brother get off the nyapi. He's going around to schools talking about all these things. He has purpose, passion, drive, you know what I mean? He's taking his life. So if you're in that situation, like, use the bad, the evil intent, you know, in the Bible it says, for all things work out for the good for those that love the Lord. So as much as I hated what happened to me, I now use that for good. I use that to help people and change lives, you know, and we do, you know.
Man.
So yeah.
That's amazing stuff, Martin, man. I want to keep on going. I know I've got like 1,000 other things that I want to touch on, but for the sake of time, I'm going to stop this here. But I obviously need to tell the people, man, how to find Martin, how to find MatrixMen, anyone who's struggling with the stuff that we're speaking about over here. How do guys get you? Yeah,
so we MatrixMen all over social media, right? So on Facebook, on Insta, on TikTok, on Twitter. What's the other ones? Yeah,
Facebook.
On and on.
Okay.
You know,
all across social media.
YouTube. All of that sort of stuff. So I'm known as Martin Pelders. So people can follow me. I'm also known as the abuse recovery coach. So I do a lot of work there.
Okay.
Yeah. I also do His Grace Bible Study or His Grace Men's Fellowship on YouTube. You can follow that. You know, we do Bible study through the Bible, word by word, line by line.
Doing the Lord's work, man.
Trying, really, you know. Man. I just, you know, I find when I don't do it, you know, like, things don't work out in life. When I do it, like, things happen. And so clearly God is trying to tell me something.
Man, this is where you're supposed to be, man.
You know, if we're not going to learn from these things, you know, well, we might as well give up now. Take me home, Lord. I'm not learning, you know.
Man.
But yeah, so I try. There's a lot happening, but like, I'm trying my best to just reach out to as many men as I can. You know, just to say it's okay. You know, you're not alone. You know, you're one of 44%. If you've been sexually abused, if you want to add in physical, emotional, whatever abuse, it'll go up much higher. You know. And I want to start turning things around, you know. And it's like, men, you know, boys, you need to understand you're loved, you're cared for, you are valuable. You know, stop looking at the world that goes, take a girl child to work and, you know, 16 days of activism for women and girls. And no, we're going to bring it back, bro. We men, we're going to stand together. We're going to change the world.
Man.
Yeah.
Man. Martin, man, I think I also want to get you in some of our groups, man, to come give a talk. Just speak to some of the guys, man, and, you know, touch their souls, because I've been definitely touched by a lot of what you said. I know we had a a bit of a get-together meeting before we actually plugged up and switched on our microphones. And just your warmth, man, and welcoming.
Thanks, man.
And also the lightheartedness. I think that's something different, you know, you don't get from these kind of therapeutic kind of spaces, because everything is like, oh, I have to be so upright and straight all the time. But I love that you bring the lightness that kind of also takes off the weight that you're feeling, you know, when you walk in here. And yeah, man, I wish you all the best with this beautiful place that you're starting here.
Yeah.
I hope to see a lot of men here. I hope
so, yeah.
Man, God sustains you and gives you everything you need, brother.
Thanks, brother.
Carry on and do what you need to.
Thanks, man.
Sure.
And likewise to you, but
Yeah,
you keep going, doing what you're doing, you know, and you know, let your passion drive you, eh?
No, I appreciate it. Sure.
Don't slow down. If you get depressed, phone me.
Man, I've got your numbers. I'm like, hey, Martin, is this a good time? I know not to call you on weekends, so
Yeah.
I'll keep it between a Monday and a Friday. Yeah.
But I gotta save some energy. I got a 2-year-old son that I adopted a year ago, and he's busy, dude. He's busy. He's cute as all hell. He's a bundle of dynamite, but he's busy, man. He's just. You know, like when Sunday night is like Monday, I'm so happy to take him to school. Like,
Just take him.
I'll see you tonight, dude. I'm going to work to relax.
Oh, man.
But he's cute. He's an awesome boy.
Sure.
And so I try and save my time for him and my wife, of course.
Man.
So, yeah.
Nah, wonderful, man. Yo, guys, I hope you guys take a lot of lessons from this. As you know, I'll add everything in the show notes for you. So if you maybe missed some of the stuff that we shared, I'll share as many links as possible. I'll also share links for you to follow Mr. Martin Pelders all across social media. And make sure, man, if you need help, reach out to MatrixMen. Reach out to the support group. We've also got a mental health support group growing with SEDEC. So let's help each other, man. We can then feed you into Martin's groups, or you can feed into ours, however way you want to get help. Please, guys, I guarantee you guys, as long as you reach out, you will definitely find someone who can help you, and you will help yourself as well, right?
Yeah, well, that's the biggest thing, is why we're doing it, eh?
Man.
You can change your life. I don't want to change my life. I've done my work.
Exactly.
You know? I want to
Now
change
it's up
other
to you.
people. Yeah, it's up to you.
Come on, guys.
And
Let's
you
get
can.
it, man. It's been another installment of Mad Up Conversations. Absolute pleasure doing this with you, Martin.
And with you, KG.
Peace and love,
Awesome
brother.
to meet you.
Yes, sir.